Good evening, Mason, and welcome to the public share out portion of our diversity committee meeting for Mason Public Schools on June 16th, 2022. This diversity committee meeting is the last scheduled one of the 2021-22 school year, and we will resume our diversity committee meetings, although the work continues all summer long. Our meetings will continue, we'll restart in August. First of all, I'd like to welcome you again. My name is Craig Kiefner, as I'm the Mason Public Schools Director of Student Supports, and as always, welcome you to this share out. We will start with our district consultant, Dr. Carlin Tishner, who will share a summary of the meeting that just concluded, and then we will move into diversity subcommittee chair reports.
Greg, good evening. Carlin Tishner is my name. Always a pleasure to be with you all. Thanks again for joining us. For any of you and all of you who view this after the session or those who join us live, we appreciate your engagement. I'm certainly excited to report to you tonight. We have completed a full year of this work at the committee level and at the district level, and we're excited about the progress that we have made. And we know that there's always still yet more to do. And so we want to encourage you to partner with us to do that work at the school level so that ultimately we can inform even the city of Mason as it works to become change agents around equity, diversity, and inclusion. To provide an update to our report tonight, we did speak about a Padlet hub for DEI tools. Thanks to the subcommittee on educator development and resources, who developed this resource for teachers across Mason Public Schools to use whenever there is a topic of discussion that represents diversity and inclusion from different communities or organizations or experiences, lived experiences of others. For example, this month is Pride Month, so educators might have access to resources to have conversations with students at different levels around these topics and representations and experiences. And so this Padlet is available for teachers to have resources so they can engage with students at different levels about a myriad of topics. And we appreciate the team for creating these resources so teachers can have immediate access without having to create their own resource toolbox. We also talked a little bit about updates related to Teaching for Equity PD series. As a reminder, we've been doing that Teaching for Equity series all the way through this past year, and we concluded with a last conversation in June on data. We looked at Ingham County data to be clear and talked about subgroups within the data, outcomes as it relates to subgroups. And the encouragement was to learn how to leverage data in the school and educational context so that we can better inform student outcomes. We also talked a bit about changing potentially our dates and times for future committee meetings so that we can have more intimate time in person. We did not make a decision about that today because of the representation here on the committee level was smaller than our average numbers, but we will have a deeper discussion about that next time we meet so that we can have some in-person discussions as well as our virtual options that we had this year. And then last, there is an opportunity for Equity Task Force, the community events that are available. There is a Mason Pride Picnic on June 26th that we encourage you to attend if you are available to support Equity Task Force of Mason in particular. And then the last thing that we talked about in the committee, well, I should say not the last thing, one thing that I shared tonight was our intention to move and shift towards focusing on leaders and leading for equity in the next year. We'll develop a plan for supporting the development of school leaders and district leaders around equity so that they can ultimately create sustainability within the schools on these conversations with teachers, ultimately to allow educator leaders, school leaders to become instructional leaders of their schools, which is always the goal, and to move towards equity. And then we talked a little bit about our shared definition of equity as a committee and our aim to really recommit ourselves to this work in the future based on that shared definition and ideal goal of becoming a district. And then the last thing that we did was talk about the equity decision-making tool, which we tabled for future discussion because of the amount of people present tonight. And then we closed out on a discussion of the Mason Moves Forward event for next year, which will be sometime in March 2023. That concludes my report this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tishner. We're going to turn into go through our subcommittee chair reports. We'll start with our community educational resources and communications. Jen?
Thank you. So our first book club has been launched, and we will be doing a virtual book club meeting the week of July 11th. The final date and time is pending. We've had approximately 24 people reach out with their interest. The first book is called Blind Spot, and more information can be obtained if you email masonDEIbookclub@gmail.com. We also began discussions as a group to put together a panel of speakers to help us better understand marginalized students and groups in the community so that we can be more inclusive. We also continue to discuss the parent surveys and also the next Mason Moves Forward. Can't wait to see what next year brings us. Thank you.
Thank you. Educator development and resources.
Hi, Kim Clark. As Carlin talked about, we have finalized our Padlet, and that will become a living resource for the 22-23 school year. We would like to be able to work it into our staff meetings and PLCs for teachers to be able to spend time digging into those resources even further, and possibly take some recommendations to add to that resource as well. We had low interest in our staff book study, so we may decide to collaborate with the other community book study moving forward, but those decisions are still to be made. That's it for me.
Thank you, Kim. District policy guidelines and practices. That subcommittee chair is not here tonight. However, that is the equity decision-making tool that we talked about earlier, and they will, that committee, we're going to put that out to the committee as a whole through an online vote, and then it will go from there up to district leadership to sort of take a look at and see where we can use it. So that's the next steps there. We'll now turn it over to our student experience committee.
Good evening, Amy Sue Hopkins. And we met and we took a look at some of the data that the district turns in yearly to the federal government. It was all kinds of data, race and ethnicity, language speaking, different things like that, office referrals, lots of different information. And what we found out is that we really need a little bit more detailed information than what those reports have. And so we plan to work with Mr. Kiefner in the next school year to try to get some more data specifically from each of our schools that hopefully can give us more information about our student population. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy Sue. Next group is our instructional practices and curriculum design.
Hi, I'm Mary Hilker. The goals moving forward for my group are to work on putting something together with kind of what we know is going on with instructional practices and curriculum, what we've done, and then how we'd like to see it move forward, and some ideas from the district on how we can help make that happen and partner with the district in making that happen. So kind of forward planning is the next step.
Thank you, Mary. Our final group was our membership subcommittee. Again, our chair was not present tonight, but I can tell you that we are continuing to bolster our committee as a whole for next year with our recruitment efforts. those continue so that we can have a robust diversity committee going forward again for the 22-23 school year in August. And so those efforts continue. And we have one of the things we did recently was ask current committee members to recommend their colleagues and people in those specific roles that we're looking for membership, if they had people in that mind. Now we have a pretty good list of people we can sort of target and ask if they're willing to make the commitment for a year to our diversity committee work. So that's there. The last part of this thing is an opportunity for the superintendent, or in this case, his designee, me, to start talking about the work of the committee and the continued DEI efforts of the district. And I'm going to share similarly to what I did at the end of our committee as a whole. Is we often stumble, especially when we're doing reflection as a committee or as individual members of that committee. I don't know if a stumble is the right word, but we certainly think about some of the things we haven't done yet, or what hasn't been accomplished, or what we were unable to do. And we sometimes fail to reflect on the things that we have accomplished. And that's not to say that we don't. I'm sure that for almost all of us, we certainly, those things that we want to do outweigh by miles the things that we think we have accomplished. But it is reflective to think about, maybe sort of list or write a narrative of those things that have been done by the committee and the district's DEI efforts this year, which have been certainly steps in the right direction, if not something pretty significant. So I want to take this opportunity in a public forum to thank our committee for its work this year and continued work. There was a lot of growth. There were a lot of things that happened this year that some people probably didn't think would maybe get off the ground if we were to go back a year or a year and a half. So we're excited about that at the district level, but I think our committee members are too, and we look forward to even brighter 22-23, where we really can continue that work in educational equity, as Dr. Tishner referred to earlier. So we thank you and thank the public also for checking in on us every week over the course of this year. We are already in the stages of looking at those opportunities for public access next fall. So have a great June and into July, and we will see, at least from a diversity committee perspective, next August. Have a great night.